Hello, everyone. This is the Introduction to Counseling course, and I wanted to talk to you today about the functions of a therapeutic relationship and move forward in the material from there. So, what what does this mean? What does this mean? Well, the first thing to keep in mind is that, and this is an overlap. I realize the first thing to keep in mind is that the the relationship itself is a creation, a co-created dynamic that allows for, among many other things, the vehicle for the expression of intense affect. That is, the client can feel whatever they feel and then express it. You need to understand that this is not usually the way people go about their day. There are many cases, many times in all of our lives where we just don't do that and then have that accepted by those around us and understood by those around us. The second most important thing, I think, is that this relationship is a model for really high functioning, healthy interpersonal relationships and will be very different. In fact, maybe the only one they've ever experienced like this, where there are good boundaries, where there is care in the way we speak to them, where there is acceptance of what they have to say and who they are. This is very different. Okay? Third and fourth, motivation for change. Yes, absolutely. Because in that context of a safe relationship that's accepting and warm and understanding, you have more motivation to make changes. You feel the space and the room to do that. So I wanted to start with that. I wanted then to talk about, beyond that overlap, is which therapy style or counseling technique do you choose to use? How do you do that? And this is complicated. This takes a lot of experience, but I want you to understand that it's important that you know what the client's view of the problem is and how they express that. Okay? Do they talk about it intellectually? Do they talk about it emotionally? Do they talk about it as a huge life changing event? Well, how do they talk about this? What does the problem represent to them? And then how do they view the way they go about making changes? And what are their goals and what are their expectations? And then how fast or slow do they go? Can they go in making changes? And you'll learn that by changes they've made before, and you would, of course, want to check on that. How do you go about making big changes in your life? How has that gone before? What did you try and do? Okay? Now, the more tools you have, i.e., the more models that you've looked at, the more training you've had in styles and kinds of therapy, the more training you've had in how to use techniques within those styles and theories of counseling, the more tools you have in your tool bag. And if you only have one tool, everybody looks like a nail, right? And because you're just using a hammer. Well, so you need to be able to have training and understanding and experience in more than one style of counseling. That would be ideal. And then more than one experiences with various techniques within that style of counseling. Yeah. Now, part of this has to do with a good assessment. And this is a dynamic process. This isn't a moment in time. This is an ongoing process. And you're going to find out things about their problem, their concerns, their strengths, their resources, and their needs. Don't forget those things. Okay? Assessment is the foundation for goal setting. It's the foundation for treatment planning. What are you going to do? In what step? What order are you going to work? In some kinds of therapies, assessment is crucial. In others, it's all but absent. So this is an issue. Now, again, assessment is an important issue, and here are some things I like to stress, and that is, do they want counseling or do other people want them to have counseling? Who thinks there's a problem? What do they think the problem is? Who's on their side? Who's a support person? What does the person do well? Skills, hobbies, sports, activities, avocations, life experience. What do they do well? What are their goals? How will we know when counseling will be done? What would that look like? The miracle question is, if you went to sleep tonight and woke up the next morning and all of your problems were solved, what would that look like? Okay. So another issue with assessment is trying to find out what the patterns of the problem are. When do they happen? Who are they with? Time, place, what's going on? And then part of this is also being on the lookout for ultimately difficult things. Desire to hurt or kill oneself. The desire to hurt another person. So the client needs to be assessed if you think that might be an issue. So people with things like depression and eating disorders, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, things like that are ones that have a higher risk for those sorts of ideations and behaviors. Now, in terms of intake tools, we might use intake forms for the clinic that we're working at. That's a given. But we have questions we're going to ask. We have history taking that we're going to make. We're going to assess mental status. We might use things like an substance abuse assessment tool if we think that's an issue. We might use the BDI and the BAI, the Beck Depression Inventory, the Beck Anxiety Inventory. I use those. Here are some rules of thumb about assessment. All testing tools have limitations, and you should never make any diagnoses based on just an assessment tool. The assessment tool should be used as a confirmation of what your clinical interview has been and what it led to. So you should only use tools for which you have training, yes, and they should never replace your experience and expertise, ever. Let's look at stages of change. We mentioned that. We want to know what a person's idea about change is. So we can start with pre-contemplation. I don't want to change. I haven't thought about it. I want to do it. Contemplation. I'm thinking about it. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? Preparation. I'm thinking about making a plan, and I'm beginning to put some things together in my head. Action. I'm doing it. I'm taking steps. I'm making steps. I'm not doing it regular or anything. I'm just giving it a try. Maintenance. I'm doing it. I'm beginning to see something here. And then the end, a termination stage, which is I see the change. It's better than what I was doing before, and so I don't want to go back. That's the basis of what we call the stages of change. Yeah? Okay. Now let's talk about goal setting. Goal setting defines desired outcomes. It gives us a direction for the counseling itself. It specifies what we can and cannot do in counseling. And it should always be flexible. Goal setting is flexible. You might need to change something later. You're going down a path and then you discover, with the client, well, maybe we're going to go this way. That would be better. Okay. It's useful to evaluate the effectiveness of what you're doing as they make progress. And you want to share that with the client. Now, in terms of making progress, what can we say about this? Well, in terms of making progress, we want to know whether or not the client is experiencing good things. So, well, are there indicators of success or not? So let's get to this from a basic point of view. Who's better at identifying whether a client's making progress in psychotherapy, the counselor or the client? The client, always. Clients are much better at that. And of course they should. Who's better at accurately rating the quality of the working relationship and the quality of the relationship itself? The therapist or the client? The client. Therapists often think it's better than it really is. Or worse than it really is, I suppose. But they're way off often. So what are the real indicators of things going well? Well, when clients own their own part in what's going on, and what has created it, what keeps it going, and what the solutions are. They claim their part in that. When they develop useful insights about their problems and issues, when they acquire new ways to think about things, new ways to do things, and overall, it would be learning how to develop healthier and more effective relationships. Those are signs of improvement and counseling success. Because if you look at where people are when they come in, they're not doing those one or more of those things very well or at all. Now, can you assess and track progress? Yes. Remember that progress may go up at first and then plateau and then down, or go down right away or go up right away. It can take any kind of path you can imagine. And we want to know where it's going. We want to know where it's going. You can ask, how are we doing? Are we working on what you want to work on? Are we doing what you want to do? You can make an interpretation. You can say, the last couple of sessions you've looked less overwhelmed. Is that how you're feeling? Yeah? Okay. You want to ask yourself, are we following what he wants or she wants to do? Towards what goals they have said they wanted to work on? Have I been clear about what we're doing and why we're doing it? Yeah. Do I think the client feels heard and understood and respected? Okay. Now, there's a couple of rating scales I've included in your PowerPoint. I won't go over those, but one is the basics are that outcome rating scale, the ORS, measures effect, and the other one is a session rating scale, which is measuring the fit. So the outcome rating scale is about how they're feeling by rating how well they're doing in areas of their life. Okay? And that's outcome measure. And they little mark along a continuum. And then the session rating scale is how well they did today. Whether they felt good in the counseling relationship, the goals, and how they worked on them, the method and approach, and then overall how they think that we're doing. And you can do those every time. You can graph them and you can take a look at that. Yeah, sure. That's my dog. And so we'll pick it up next time.